Everly Conway scanned the crowded room, her eyes skipping over the glittering diamonds and designer gowns. They were just noise. Her targets were the men in tailored suits, the ones whose quiet conversations could make or break a company like hers. The air in the Met Gala was thick with perfume and power. It made her stomach clench. She spotted Christian Fernandez near the Temple of Dender exhibit. He was a legend in the tech venture capital world, the kind of investor who didn't just write checks but built empires. This was her shot. She took a deep breath, a familiar habit to center herself. Her hand, holding a flute of champagne, was steady. It had to be. She smoothed the fabric of her simple black dress, a stark contrast to the opulence around her, and began to move through the crowd. Each step was calculated. She offered a polite nod here, a small smile there, her path a direct line to Fernandez. She was almost there, close enough to see the thoughtful expression on his face as he listened to another guest. She raised her glass, ready to catch his eye, to deliver the opening line she had rehearsed 100 times. Then, a large hand closed around her wrist. It wasn't rough, but it was firm, an inescapable cage of flesh and bone. The champagne flute was plucked from her fingers and placed silently on a passing waiter's tray. A voice, low and cold and terrifyingly familiar, spoke directly beside her ear. Mrs. McKinney's tolerance for alcohol was never this high, as I recall. The name felt like a brand on her skin, a name she hadn't used, hadn't heard directed at her, in 2 years. Every muscle in Everly's body went rigid, the air froze in her chest. She didn't have to turn to know who it was. The scent of cedar and expensive wool, the sheer heat radiating from his body, it was him. Bryce McKinney. Her husband. She turned slowly, a mechanical movement. His eyes, the color of a winter sky, were fixed on her. They held the same chilling intensity, the same unwavering look of ownership that had suffocated her for years. He hadn't changed. Taller than everyone around them, his presence sucked all the air out of the space he occupied. Christian Fernandez glanced over, his eyes registering Bryce. He gave a respectful, almost imperceptible nod to the man holding her arm, then excused himself with a practiced ease, melting back into the crowd. Her opportunity vanished, just like that. A cold fury, sharp and clean, cut through her shock. She kept her voice low, a tight wire of sound. Mr. McKinney, I don't believe we have anything to discuss. His gaze swept over her face, lingering for a fraction of a second on the hollows beneath her cheekbones. His grip on her wrist tightened, the pressure of his thumb a painful reminder of his strength. 2 years, and you've become so formal? He didn't wait for an answer. He began to pull her through the throng of people, his long strides forcing her into a clumsy half-jog to keep up. The polite smiles of the New York elite followed them, their eyes full of unspoken questions. Let go of me, Bryce, she hissed, trying to wrench her arm free. The effort was useless. It was like pulling against granite. He didn't stop until they were through a set of glass doors and onto a deserted stone terrace. The cool night air hit her skin, a welcome shock after the stuffy heat of the gala. The distant sounds of city traffic were a low hum beneath the music drifting from inside. She yanked her arm again, and this time, he released her. A raw, red mark was already forming on her skin where his fingers had been. She took a step back, putting space between them. She reached into her small clutch, her movements precise and steady, and pulled out a folded document. She didn't hand it to him. She slapped it against his chest. These are the divorce papers. I've already signed them. Bryce didn't even glance down. The crisp white pages fluttered from his tailored suit, landing silently on the dark stone at his feet. His eyes never left hers. Give me a reason. His voice was flat. A command, not a question. The CEO demanding an explanation for a failed merger. A bitter laugh escaped her lips. We were never in love. Is that reason enough for you? He took a step forward, and she instinctively took one back. He was a predator closing in, his shadow swallowing her whole. Marriage is a contract, Everly. A binding agreement. Your reason is not acceptable. Her back hit the cold, ornate balustrade of the terrace. There was nowhere left to retreat. The city lights glittered behind him, a beautiful, indifferent backdrop to her personal nightmare. I'm not negotiating, Bryce. I'm informing you. She lifted her chin, meeting his gaze without flinching. Her eyes flickered to his wrist. He was still wearing it. The Patek Philippe watch she had given him on their wedding day. The polished silver gleamed under the faint light from the ballroom. A small, ironic smile touched her lips. She pushed off the railing, sidestepping him to leave. Everly. His voice stopped her, a low warning that vibrated through the air. He didn't turn around. Don't force me to make you stay. She didn't pause. She didn't look back. She walked through the glass doors, her back straight, and disappeared into the warmth and noise of the party, leaving him alone in the cold. For a long moment, Bryce stood motionless on the terrace. The wind tugged at his black tie. He finally looked down at the divorce papers lying on the ground. He bent, his movements stiff, and picked them up. He unfolded the document. Her signature, elegant and decisive, was at the bottom of the last page. He pulled his phone from his pocket, his thumbs swiping across the screen. He found the contact and pressed call. It was answered on the first ring. Jamie. He stared out at the city skyline, at the empire he commanded. She's back. The silence on the other end of the line was absolute. Jamie Beasley, his chief of staff, knew better than to speak. Use every resource we have. Bryce's voice was devoid of all emotion, a flat, chilling command. I want to know where she's been for the last 2 years. What she's done. Who she's seen. He paused, his knuckles white as he gripped the phone. Everything. Did I want a full report on my desk before sunrise? The key sliding into the lock of her apartment door was the best sound in the world. Evelise stepped inside, the exhaustion of the evening crashing down on her the moment the door clicked shut behind her. She leaned against it, kicking off the heels that had carried her through the battlefield of the gala. The elegant armor she wore felt heavy and foreign now. All she wanted was to wash the night away. Miss Conway, you're home. A kind-faced woman with graying hair, Mrs. Petrova, met her in the small foyer, taking her coat. Leo just fell asleep. He was asking for you. A warmth spread through Evelise's chest, chasing away the chill from the terrace. Thank you, Petrova. You can go home. I'll see you in the morning. After the nanny left, Evelie padded silently down the hallway to the smallest bedroom. The door was cracked open, spilling a sliver of soft light from a moon-shaped nightlight. She pushed it open gently. There, in a small bed, a little boy with a halo of blonde hair was sleeping soundly. He was clutching a well-loved stuffed rabbit, its ears worn from countless hugs. Leo. Her son. Her world. She knelt by his bed, her heart aching with a love so fierce it almost hurt to breathe. She gently brushed a curl from his forehead, her touch feather-light. He stirred, a soft sigh escaping his lips, but didn't wake. She leaned down and pressed a soft kiss to his warm skin. He was her reason. The reason she had run. The reason she had to fight. The reason she could never, ever go back. Leaving his room, she found her younger sister, Iris, curled up on the living room sofa, a guitar resting across her lap and a notebook open beside her. Iris looked up, her bright, defiant eyes instantly searching Evelise's face. So, did you see the bastard? Iris never minced words. Everly sank into the armchair opposite the couch, the plush fabric a welcome comfort. She ran a hand over her face, feeling the strain of the forced smiles and tense conversations. He was there. She recounted the evening in a flat, tired voice. The interception. The terrace. The divorce papers dropped on the cold stone. Iris shot up from the sofa, her guitar making a soft thud as she set it aside. She began pacing the small living room, her restless energy filling the space. He threatened you? Of course he did. That's all he knows how to do. That arrogant prick. We should just leave, Ev. Let's get out of New York. We can go back to California. Everly watched her sister's frantic movements, a small, weary smile touching her lips. No, she said, her voice quiet but firm. No more running. My company is here. Leo's life is here. This is our home now. Her gaze was steady, her resolve hardening with every word. I'm not afraid of him anymore. Iris stopped pacing and came to sit on the arm of her chair, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. You're right. We're not afraid of him. Miles away, in a steel and glass tower overlooking the city, the atmosphere was anything but comforting. The lights of the McKinney Holdings CEO office burned brightly against the dark sky. Bryce stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, his shirt sleeves rolled up to his forearms, his tie ripped loose from his collar hours ago. He hadn't slept. Jamie Beasley stood before the massive mahogany desk, his expression grim. He placed a slim file folder on the polished surface. Sir, this is what we have so far. Bryce turned from the window. He picked up the folder, his movements sharp and impatient. He flipped it open. The first page was a summary of a small startup, Elysian Creative, a branding and digital marketing agency. Founder and CEO, Evelie Conway. A flicker of something unreadable, surprise, respect, passed through his eyes. She had built this from nothing. In 2 years, she had built a real company. He turned the page. And then he stopped. His entire body went still. The air in the room seemed to crackle with sudden tension. It was a photograph. A candid shot, taken from a distance. Evelie, in a park, her face alight with a genuine, carefree smile he hadn't seen in years. She was pushing a swing. On the swing was a small boy, his face tilted up to the sun, laughing with pure, unadulterated joy. Jamie cleared his throat, his voice carefully neutral. She gave birth to a son a year ago in a private hospital in Santa Barbara, California. His name is Leo Conway. He carries her surname. Bryce's gaze remained locked on the photo, on the boy's bright green eyes, so much like Evelie's. The birth records indicate a conception date approximately 3 months after she left New York, Jamie added, choosing his words with extreme care. Bryce's hand, holding the file, tightened. The edges of the paper began to crumple under the pressure of his fingers. The silence in the office stretched, becoming heavy and suffocating. Jamie could feel the temperature drop. Who? Bryce's voice was a low rasp, like gravel scraping against stone. Is the father? We're still working on that, sir. Her life in California was extremely private. Jamie felt a bead of sweat trickle down his temple. Bryce stared at the photo of the laughing boy. A storm of emotions he couldn't name: rage, jealousy. A profound and searing sense of betrayal rose in his chest, hot as lava. She had left him, and she had immediately found someone else, had a child with someone else. The thought was a physical blow, knocking the air from his lungs. He slapped the folder shut. The sound echoed in the silent office like a gunshot. Keep digging, he ordered, his voice dangerously quiet. I want to know who the man is. He walked back to his desk, the photo burned into his mind. He picked up the file again, his mind racing. And Jamie. Sir? Get me a DNA sample from the boy. Jamie hesitated for a second. Sir, the timeline dash. I want to be 100% certain. Bryce cut him off, his voice like ice. I want to know for a fact that he is not mine. The hum of quiet efficiency in the Elysian creative office was usually a sound Everly loved. Today, it felt like the ticking of a clock counting down to disaster. She was in the middle of a strategy meeting with her small team, trying to figure out their next move. The energy was tense. Her assistant, Mia Foster, knocked and entered the glass-walled conference room, her face pale with worry. Everly, she whispered, leaning in close. I just heard back from the agency that handles the Times Square digital billboard. Everly paused, her pen hovering over the whiteboard. And they said our application has been indefinitely postponed. Mia swallowed hard. A higher priority client took the slot. Everly's fingertips began a soft, unconscious rhythm against the cool surface of the conference table. Tap, tap, tap. She didn't need to ask who. She knew. A chill that had nothing to do with the office air conditioning crept down her spine. He wasn't just threatening her anymore. He was actively dismantling her business, piece by piece. She forced her expression to remain calm for her team. Okay, plan B. Mia, get in touch with the reps for the Nasdaq Tower. Ryan, let's look at a more aggressive social media push. The meeting wrapped up, but the cloud of uncertainty remained. Everly stood alone at the window of her office, looking out at the chaotic ballet of New York traffic below. She had built this place with her own 2 hands, every client won, every project completed a testament to her independence, and he thought he could just take it all away. A wave of helplessness washed over her, so strong it made her knees feel weak. Her phone buzzed on the desk, an unknown number. Her heart gave a hard thud against her ribs. She hesitated for only a second before answering, her voice cool and professional. Everly Conway. The voice on the other end was ice. Pure, distilled rage, barely contained. We need to meet. You can choose the place. Or I can choose for you. It was Bryce. And he sounded like he was on the verge of starting a war. In his office high above Manhattan, Bryce stared at the phone on his desk, his grip tightening. On his desk, next to the first report, lay a second, much shorter one. It was a single page from a genetics lab. The results were brutally simple. A comparison between a sample from John Doe, Bryce, and minor male, Leo Conway. Probability of paternity, 99.9%. The words seemed to burn on the page. Jamie had just finished explaining how his investigator had managed it. A discarded ice cream spoon from a playground trash can near Everly's apartment. Clean, efficient, and utterly damning. Bryce hadn't really heard the details. His mind was a maelstrom of white-hot fury. She had hidden his son from him. The thought was a profound betrayal, a calculated theft of his own flesh and blood. The anger was so intense it felt like a physical presence in the room, choking him. He felt a surge of jealousy, so powerful it made him see red. He shot up from his chair, the force of the movement sending the heavy leather seat rolling back until it slammed into the credenza behind him. The sound echoed in the vast office. He snatched the report from the desk, his knuckles white. He strode to the window, the city spread out beneath him like a map of his own kingdom. He had given her this city. He had laid it at her feet. And in return, she had stood in this very city and made a fool of him by keeping his heir secret. He crushed the paper in his fist. Cancel my afternoon, he said to Jamie, his back still to the room. He pulled out his phone, his thumb moving with violent precision until it found her number. A number he hadn't called in 2 years. He listened to her cool, professional greeting, the sound of her voice a spark on dry tinder. And he issued his ultimatum. Back in her office, Everly held the phone, the heavy silence on the line vibrating with his unspoken threat. She could still feel the barely controlled violence in his voice. It was more than just anger about the divorce or her company. This was something else, something personal. She had assumed it was about the billboard. I have nothing to say to you, she said, her voice colder than his. A harsh, humorless laugh crackled through the line. Really? Then let's talk about Leo Conway. The world tilted on its axis. Her breath hitched. Her blood ran cold. He knew. 3 o'clock. In front of your building. The line went dead. Everly slowly lowered the phone, her hand trembling. He had found her son. He had found her one vulnerability, and he was already using it as a weapon.